see you in the golden sand on an island far, far away. Midas touch, I'm the magic man. Follow me and let's get out of this place. We could fly over our problems, watching clouds from a private jet. But you don't have to worry about the rain when only champagne gets you wet. Everywhere I go, everything is gold. Everybody knows I got the Midas touch. Everywhere I go, everything is gold. Everybody knows I got the Midas touch. 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 Oh yeah. I wanna put some diamonds in your ears and tell you everything you want to hear. And throw this money in the atmosphere. Can you feel me now? Everywhere I go, everything is gold. Everybody knows I got the Midas touch. Everywhere I go, everything is gold. Everybody knows I got the Midas touch. Everywhere I go, everything is gold. Everybody knows I got the Midas touch. Everywhere I go, everything is gold. Everybody knows I got the Midas touch. I can see you in the golden sand on an island far, far away. Midas touch, I'm the magic man. Follow me and let's get out of this place. We could fly over our problems, watching clouds from a private jet. But you don't have to worry about the rain when only champagne gets you wet. Everywhere I go, everything is gold. Everybody knows I got the Midas touch. Everywhere I go, everything is gold. Everybody knows I got the Midas touch. I got the Midas touch.
Hello, 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 everyone. After everyone started moving and grooving over there, how's everyone doing? I see all your comments here in the comment section. Can you all hear me? Okay. Well, welcome to the Hashnode Bootcamp Fall 2023. I hope you all can feel the excitement after all these tunes and this amazing intro. As you know, my name is Daniela Passos. You can call me Dani. I'm the Developer Relations Lead here at Hashnode, and I'm super pumped to get our event kick-started. I'm doing well, thank you. So first things first, let's talk Hashnode. Hashnode is more than just a platform. As you all know, we are a big community. I kind of like to say like a tech haven, a place where you can write, share, and engage and meet other developers to enhance your tech career, new relationships, and it's built by devs for devs, and that's why it makes it so special. Now I'd like to talk a little bit more about the Hashnode Bootcamp. I gathered some of the brightest minds and some of my favorite industry leaders in the tech world to bring you guys some awesome set of sessions. Whether you're interested in coding, community building, getting a job in tech, or even in personal branding, I'm sure I got something for you that will kind of like tickle your tech taste buds. And today we're going to kick off this session with Jamie Barton, one of my favorite leaders in the GraphQL word. And after that, we're going to have Rafael Hernandez from Free Code Camp, which will bring us to the world of open source opportunities. And the list goes on. We have 5 days of action-packed days, actually. So do keep your IDEs, your notepads, and your Hashnode blog drafts ready, because you're going to want to put a lot of these notes down and have a lot of notes to share and keep for yourself. So I do want to address some of the prizes that I have prepared for you guys in this event. So if you're feeling inspired, you want to write an article and tweets sharing some of the screenshots from the sessions that you're going to watch, tag it with Hashnode Bootcamp and share it with the world. The top 3 articles and tweets with the most likes and comments will get a Hashnode gift box, which will be a super cool gift box for you guys. So not only you get to learn, but also get a chance to get something special. And how awesome is that, right? Okay. Gonna write your first blog during the boot camp. I'm sure that's gonna be awesome, and I'm already looking forward to seeing what you're gonna write about. So here's one more cool part. This isn't just about tuning in and zoning out, but I really want you guys to engage, ask questions, and even challenge some of our speakers if you have a different take and want to share your opinion. So do remember the strength of a deaf community, and our deaf community will be the diversity of thoughts and your opinions. So don't be shy, put yourself out there, share your comments, share your questions, because I'm sure we're going to have a lot of good discussions. So I'm looking forward to seeing your opinions in each one of the topics as well. Well, I see a lot of people interacting here in the comments. So don't forget to connect with other developers. We have a super broad community from people coming from all over the world. So we get devs from all corners of the globe. So slide into the comment section if you haven't already. Say hello, share your Hashnode usernames, and even team up for our upcoming hackathon, which will be announced later today. It's a big spoiler. So who knows? Maybe your next collaboration can be just a chat away, and you're going to make some good friends down the road. Awesome. I see a lot of people using rigs as well. That's great. We also have a big session about rigs and how you can use rigs not only for learning, but also to enhance your coding career and your coding productivity. So that's going to be really, really cool. So back to why we do this and why I planned this huge event for you guys. In my perspective, Hashnode's mission is to empower developers. So I'm here to give you all the tools, the network, and the knowledge, not only to survive the tech space, but to actually thrive in this ever-changing tech landscape, which we know it's always changing, and better in a way that we do that in a boot camp designed specifically for us developers. That's awesome. So the sessions will be recorded, and we'll share the recordings only after the bootcamp ends. So make sure to tune in, get your comments in the chat box, and interact with everyone here, because we're going to have a lot of good sessions and a lot of interactions with the speakers and our other Hashnodes friends. So in the end of the boot camp, you will not be only walking away with slides and recordings and session notes, but you'll also be walking away with a lot of actionable insights. I really want you guys to have new connections, maybe even some swag if you're lucky and you write good articles about what you have learned here. And most importantly, I really want you to have the confidence to tackle your next step challenge and your next step in your career and build cool hackathon projects. So I really want you guys to learn and develop here in the best way possible. Let me know in the comments if what is your favorite session for today? What are you looking forward to watching? And if you have a favorite speaker for the day today. Amazing. Amazing. I can share my journey on Hashnode. So I have been on Hashnode since earlier this year. It has been a super, super fun journey so far. I love my team, love the product that we're building, and love, especially you guys, the community. So I have been building a lot of community activations, events like this one, and amazing hackathons that I really want to invite you to join us and build cool products. So that's going to be an amazing thing. And I'm really glad to have you guys here watching us, tuning in, commenting, and contributing to today's event. Building connections in the open source section. Okay. Oh, I see Gabe here. Well, you may be getting some cool swag from Hashnode with tweets and articles that you're going to write about after the session ends. So I'm really excited to see you guys' reactions as well by receiving some fresh new Hashnode swag. So that's going to be awesome. So, what can we expect from today's event? That's a great question. So, today we have a packed session with Jamie, starting with all you need to know about GraphQL, which is going to be a big, big thing. Rafael from Free Code Camp is going to share all the tricks, tips and tricks from contributing an open source. So I imagine a lot of you are really excited for that one. And then we're going to have Rajat, my teammate on Hashnode, telling you all about Hashnode's AI capabilities and what you can do with our editor. Um, Together with that, last but not least, we have Sabrina telling you how you can build your dev career and how you can leverage your skills as a junior developer. So that's going to be really, really fun. Okay. You're hyped for GraphQL. Jamie, I have Jamie here. All right.
Hey, hey.
Welcome, welcome. All right, folks. We are about to start our sessions with Jamie. Grab a cup of coffee, tea, or whatever gets you fueled for coding and to learn. Get comfy. Let's make the Hashnode Bootcamp Fall 2023 not only just another event, but actually an experience to be remembered. So, Jamie, I'll let you take over the stage.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Danny. So yeah, I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Thanks very much for the compliments on the hat. It took me so long to actually get this produced, but it's actually a logo for the website that I create GraphQL tutorials for. If anyone's curious what that is. So yeah, I think we can get started today to talk about just GraphQL in general. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you should all migrate and use GraphQL. I'm not that kind of person, but I want to kind of share more about GraphQL, what it is, where it came from, how people are using it today, and how you can get started using it, and show that it maybe isn't as scary as you may think. I've been using GraphQL for many years now, and I still enjoy using it. So yeah, keep the questions flowing in. Hey everyone, that is just tuning in now. And yeah, feel free to interrupt me or disagree with me, or share your thoughts as we get going. But yeah, brief agenda for the next 30 minutes or so. I will try and go through this as quickly as possible, and if there are questions, we can stop and start as we go. So let's kick things off with an introduction to GraphQL. And the screenshots on this slide are probably the most famous screenshots ever in the history of GraphQL. What we can see at the very bottom here is what a GraphQL essentially is. This is how the graphql.org website pitches GraphQL, and essentially it's a way to type or annotate your data, and then you can ask for what you want, and then you get exactly what you asked for in JSON. So here we can see on the far left at the very bottom screenshot that we have a type project that has some fields inside of there with different types or scalars. And then in the middle, we have a GraphQL query that we're able to execute and return the data that we want. On the right-hand side, we also have a screenshot of the graphical interface. And this is something that was released at the time alongside GraphQL as its implementation. And with this, you're able to boot up essentially this UI to interface with GraphQL APIs. So if you're familiar with Swagger UI and tools like that, this is essentially GraphQL's version. It's able to use the introspection system to generate this UI that you can use to interface with everything. So yeah, GraphQL is essentially a query language for your API. So what does that mean? Well, it's an API for an API. You could say it was created by Facebook many years ago. I think 2012, and then it was later open sourced in 2015. Could have been some time before that. I don't know the internals there, but it was developed at Facebook to handle their ever-grown mobile issues, and they needed a standard API that they could make requests to that didn't involve the engineering team creating all of these specific REST routes or just endpoints in general to be used for various parts of applications. So there wasn't all of these different endpoints that just delivered certain things for certain UIs. They were able to use one API and request the data as users navigated through different parts of the application. And fundamentally, GraphQL is just a specification. So it doesn't, although HTTP is its most common implementation, you could use GraphQL specification in any way you like, basically. So yeah, it's good to see that there's a few people who have used GraphQL. Please let me know in the chat if you are currently using GraphQL, have ever used it, and never heard of it. Just let me know. I'm curious to get a vibe check on people's familiarity with GraphQL. So cool. There's a few there. Yeah, beginning with GraphQL. That's awesome. So I'm going to talk about some of the benefits. This should hopefully answer some of the questions as well. I think first and foremost, the main benefit of GraphQL is its flexible data retrieval possibilities. So with this, everything I just said about creating those different endpoints to expose data, when you have a single endpoint that's able to answer anything, you're able to make requests and get exactly what you need. So I think that is a huge benefit where developers don't need to maintain all of these different endpoints, but instead maintain a graph or a schema. And then with that, you're able to make requests to it to get exactly what you need. So I think that is very, very powerful. As well. So it's great to see that there's so many people who have used it, heard about it, and never heard about it, or if it's their first time. So it looks like we've got a good mix of folks here. Please do ask any questions as we go. I know there's a question in there about NoSQL and does it work there? And I'll cover that a little bit later. So yeah, the strongly typed schema is also at the core, at the foundation of GraphQL. So you have this very strong schema that has all of the different types, queries, mutations, and we'll go on and cover what those mean in just a second. But you have this type schema that describes exactly what you can and cannot do. It also describes the arguments and the types and whether there's a default value in there. So you're able to make these requests to your backend and actually do a lot of type generation as well. So when you do make requests to your backend, you will know if there is going to be a value or if it's going to be null because of the type system. You can specify things as nullable and non-nullable as well. So that's pretty cool. And because of the type system, you're able to run introspection queries. So GraphQL implements an introspection system that you're able to use to learn about all of the different queries, mutations, subscriptions, all of the different types. If there's any special directives that your schema has, and directives are pretty cool, which I'll cover later on. But you're able to make queries about and introspect the entire API in the schema, so you can learn all about it. And that can do cool things like power the UI, like we've seen on the first screen with graphical, or it could power something in your application where maybe you just want to create a query inside of your documentation to show all of the different mutations that are available. You can use the introspection system to return that. And that doesn't really require anything other than knowing the schema. GraphQL has its own internals to be able to expose all of that documentation, which is pretty cool. GraphQL also supports subscriptions and live queries. The most popular or the most used, the most common implementation of this is probably with WebSockets, although you're able to use cool techniques such as server-sent events to stream data across that connection. So if you're not too fussed about two-way communication, you can just stream events from the server over GraphQL. So if you make a query, you may want to subscribe to that query. So as data changes, you get those updates come over the wire. And then also we have query planning, which I think is really powerful, because if we're able to take a GraphQL request, the GraphQL request contains the query's name and the fields that you asked for. And based on that, at a server level, you're able to look and see all of the different fields that were requested. So you're able to project onto the database the exact fields that you want to select or you want to join if there's any relations there. So instead of just doing this whole select everything and join everything you need, you're able to precisely construct the projection queries onto your database, which can reduce latency. It could reduce usage as well with those database providers, which make it really affordable to scale as well. And then persistent operations, I've just tagged this in this query planning part, although it deserves to be its own thing. But with this, what you can do is you can abstract at build time all of the different operations and queries that your application has and store them somewhere, and then only allow those to be ran from your application. So if somebody was to discover your GraphQL endpoint, they wouldn't be able to make any requests because they're not sending over a hash basically of that operation. So that's a cool little benefit of GraphQL. And we can talk more about that. And then very lastly, a benefit of this is observability. You can make a GraphQL request and you could observe all of the different queries and fields that are requested. And then you're able to then use that to track all of the different fields that are used. So if you want to deprecate a field, you could go on to track what fields are used and no longer used, and then you can safely deprecate those. You can also mark fields as deprecated and then measure its usage over time. If you can see that a field is no longer requested, then it's probably safe to remove it. So it's cool like that. So the differences between GraphQL and SQL is that GraphQL, I would say, is more high level on that. You can use SQL within a GraphQL resolver to make requests to databases, but you can also use GraphQL to talk to other APIs that are either GraphQL, REST, gRPC, however you like. And yeah, there's some comments about NoSQL as well. You can use NoSQL databases with GraphQL. GraphQL isn't a database of any sort. It isn't anything but a specification, really, and a way to describe how to fetch and mutate data at the end of it. So let's dive into the GraphQL operations, which could be quite cool to look at. So I've listed a few here. These are the main GraphQL operations that we have. We have queries, mutations, and subscriptions. And the queries are similar to a GET request with REST. You make a request, We can see on the right here, this is what a GraphQL query typically looks like. There's a bit more to it, which I'll show in the next slide. But here we're able to specify the fields and any relationships and those fields as well. We send that request over, and then the API returns the response to us. Mutations is probably similar to post, put, and delete in a REST API. So if you have a resource that you want to mutate, you can just use a GraphQL mutation. You tag the mutation, you tag the operation as a mutation, and then that can describe the changes that are needed. And then with subscriptions, you're able to use the subscription keyword to listen and subscribe to changes that occur. So if anything changes on the server, you get that data also. So yeah, I'm just keeping an eye on the chat. There's some questions about should we learn SQL before starting with GraphQL. Honestly, I would say no. You can get pretty far just using a ORM. If you wanted to build, there's two parts of GraphQL. There's the client side, which we're seeing in this slide here, but then there's also the server side, which is where you actually build all of the different resolvers and the schema for your server. And with these, I would say you don't really need to know SQL, but if you're using an ORM like Prisma or Drizzle or Connects or something else, you would use those inside of the resolver code when you're writing up the kind of the back end. But there's tons of different platforms that allow you to create GraphQL APIs without knowing ORMs or SQL or anything like that. You can literally just provide it the schema and it generates those APIs for you automatically. So all you really need to be concerned about is the client side. So it depends how far you want to go into GraphQL. Do you want to create the API or do you want to let someone else do it? So moving on. So yeah, with Express.js, with Express.js, you could host a GraphQL endpoint with Express.js. You could do it inside of a Next.js function. You could do it on wherever you could expose HTTP. You can expose a GraphQL endpoint. Essentially, all that's doing is serving a schema that you can introspect and perform operations with. And then that also has an executable that you can use to provide operations and return the data there. But we'll not go into that too much detail. I'm happy to talk to anybody after about the server side of GraphQL. This is just going to be a very quick tour through everything in regards to GraphQL. So this GraphQL operation that we see on screen here, there's so many different keywords here, but I think it's important to show the flexibility in a GraphQL operation. So first thing on the left we have is query, which is the operation type. And then we can give it an optional name as well and optional arguments. So if we wanted to reuse this query but pass different variables to it, we don't have to do anything with template literals and injecting those strings or whatever. We can use GraphQL's type system to our advantage by specifying GraphQL variables of specific types. So here we have first as an int, and it has that bang on the end, which means it's non-nullable. So with this query, if we don't pass the variable first, before GraphQL begins to execute this, it will reject and say, the variable is missing. You said that it's non-nullable, but you haven't passed this across with the request. So before that even touches a database and it executes, you get that warning from the GraphQL validation system. And that's really cool. I know I've spent so many days and evenings and long weekends implementing validation layers on top of my APIs. And it's something I have to do over and over again. With GraphQL, it's just kind of part of GraphQL. And most of the implementations, whether it be JavaScript, Ruby, Go, Rust, they all have this basic mechanic inside of there, which is cool. And then as we go inside of the query feed here, we pass along that GraphQL variable, and we can also pass along different arguments. Here we have order by, and we are able to specify the field and the value. The value in green, descending, is an enumeration. And then with this, all of the applicable arguments here on that query are defined inside of the server. So that's something, if you are implementing, you have full control over what's exposed to the client. And then feed here, inside of there, we have three dots. We have ... on post, and then below that, we have ... on photo. feed here is a polymorphic or a GraphQL union type. So I'm just trying to show the flexibility here of the query, but we're able to make a request to get data from the field, and whether the feed entry or item is a photo or a post, we want to fetch different fields on that. So in the case of a post, we might want to fetch the text and the author. And then inside of author, we're able to spread on a fragment. And a fragment is essentially a collection of other fields, so we don't have to repeat ourselves. There's many other advantages to fragments, but that's the most common implementation. And then with the photo, we're able to fetch rating. And then we see we have a different field for URL this time. And then URL is able to have its own input arguments there as well. So we have crop, width, and height. We're able to pass along those field arguments as well. So that's a generic GraphQL query operation. This is quite advanced, I would say. It has, and there's other things on here that we haven't included, like aliases and directives. So if we wanted to return data from this query as something else, we could use an alias. So we could call feed something else, or author could be called person. We can do that directly inside of the query, and GraphQL will map those responses. And then directives we can use to skip, include, defer, stream values as well, but we'll not go into those today. And I mentioned earlier on, this is probably the most popular screenshot in GraphQL. This is graphical. You're able to make all of those queries and mutations inside of this interface. And most GraphQL implementations give you this tool out of the box, whether it's a hosted platform or you decide to build your own GraphQL API. This graphical interface is something which you can run yourself. It's a React app. I think it's also a vanilla app as well. You can run and insert wherever you like. And this is what you, as kind of a development IDE, looks like with GraphQL. Here you're able to explore the full API and create all of those different questions. And there's a question about whether you're using REST. Isn't there a need for GraphQL? That's true. If you are quite happy with REST, no problem. Continue to use that. Like I said at the very beginning, I'm not here to say you should use one or the other. Again, this is just an option at the end of the day. You can use a GraphQL API, and you might prefer the GraphQL API for its benefits of the type system. That's what I find most beneficial. If you are connecting and communicating with many different APIs, I find GraphQL a little bit nicer to interface with because everything's together, and I don't have all of these different endpoints. Now, there are implementations of REST APIs like Swagger, where you can, or Open API, sorry, where you can create a specification for your API, and then tooling like what you see here with Graphical, that tooling exists on top of those specifications. But in my experience, those often take a lot longer to get going with. By nature of GraphQL, you get this type system by default. You don't have to, there's no way to kind of opt out of it unless you disable it, and then yeah, it's just kind of part of the system. So I want to talk about some of the myths with GraphQL. I think here, I mentioned it earlier on, but it's not a graph database, or it's not just for graph databases. You can use graph databases, which are slightly different than GraphQL, but you can use GraphQL with those if you want, but it's not a graph database. And it isn't just a React or JavaScript thing. It's very, very popular in those communities because the initial implementation was JavaScript, the reference implementation of GraphQL, but it's not bound to just JavaScript. And they also, GraphQL doesn't just work over HTTP, although that's my preferred, and I think 99% of people's usage of GraphQL is over HTTP. You can use this as well. Maybe it's service-to-service bindings that you want to expose some internal API that interfaces via something else. You could, in theory, use the GraphQL specification there as well. And GraphQL, at the end of the day, works over fetch if you're using it with HTTP. So wherever that's supported, you can use GraphQL. GraphQL also has this a myth that it isn't secure, and there are ways in which GraphQL. There's so many companies working around GraphQL security at this point. You're able to disable things like the introspection system. You're able to disable some of the internals for suggestions. So if you make a GraphQL query and you query for a field that doesn't exist, GraphQL will go, maybe you meant this field instead, and it will return that. Some of that stuff you can also disable as well. Many of the different server implementations give the ability to plug in and disable and tweak all of that stuff, so you can disable or enable as much of that as you like. And because it's an endpoint, at the end of the day, you can add whatever authorization layers you want on top of it. And like I've said many times, GraphQL is not going to replace REST. So just reading through some of the comments, please keep them coming. Would it be beneficial to learn REST before learning GraphQL? That is something which you can, of course, do, but it's up to you. I would say you can learn them both.
Okay, we have a lot of questions incoming.
Yeah.
So I'm pumped up here to ask away for a few before you get into finish your presentation. So
Yeah.
can you please compare GraphQL and REST APIs, and if possible, demonstrate with an example?
Yeah. So if we go back to the slide, I don't have an example on here, but with this GraphQL query here, this is essentially a GraphQL query that's making a query to fetch feed items. And if you were to think about this in REST, it could just be /feed, and that would be a GET request that returns data. But without the type system, you don't really have any idea what's returned. It's just JSON. But with GraphQL, you can submit whatever you like to a single endpoint, and then you get the data back as well. So for this example, there would be a /feed. And then maybe that has query string arguments for the first value and the order by value, etc.
Cool. What are the prerequisites to learn GraphQL?
GraphQL learning. I would say GraphQL.org is a good place to start to learn some of the basics. I would honestly just read the documentation there and get familiar with the specification. I think once you get familiar with GraphQL queries, mutations, and subscriptions, and how those work, the rest is a lot easier to get on board with. You're able to pick it up a lot easier, I think, once you understand those operations. And the nature of GraphQL being self-documenting, you'll find a lot of the IDEs that you use, those will give you all of the data you need to make the correct queries. If a field is required, it'll tell you this field's required. So you can get quite far with its self-documenting nature.
Okay, keep going, and I'll bring a few more questions soon.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, GraphQL and REST. It is all about single versus multiple endpoints. Which do you prefer to maintain? Manage a single GraphQL schema, or do you want to manage multiple endpoints? I don't have a preference. I don't have a strong preference. You can break GraphQL up into multiple services that create one schema, so it is more manageable if you have different teams. But also that also applies to REST APIs as well. They can be, different teams can be responsible for different endpoints. It's just entirely up to you how you want to structure your API and interface with it. I think the fetching flexibility with GraphQL is one of its superpowers. You're able to make a query to fetch my friends, and then maybe my friends of friends, or my friends of friends of friends in a single request. Now that might not be the best example. That could cause some issues on the server side, but it's up to you to implement that correctly. But of course, that flexibility to be able to fetch the data that I want is one of its biggest benefits. And as I mentioned earlier on, with versioning and the strong type system and the introspection system and the error handling, when you make requests that aren't valid before GraphQL even executes that and wastes computation, it just returns an error to say what you've given us doesn't match what's in the specification that you've designed with the schema. So that's a really cool advantage. So with vision and the observability, if you use tools to observe fields that are requested inside of APIs, then you're able to surface that to users as well. So you can deprecate fields over time that aren't used. You can safely do those as well. But yeah, GraphQL, I think, works great for federating APIs where you've got tons of different services. You want to bring them together. In GraphQL, it's not going to replace REST. It's going to work together. Now, building, deploying, and maintaining GraphQL APIs, there's so much involved, not just with GraphQL, but with any kind of API. This is a slide that I occasionally show because there's so many different things that we take into account when building APIs. But the biggest thing today that I think we face is that there are so many different data sources, and developers spend so many hours integrating and interfacing with all of the different APIs and SDKs. Now, with GraphQL, if we're able to connect all of those into a single unified GraphQL API, then it means we've got less to learn. That barrier is lowered because we have a single way to interface with APIs. We haven't got to worry about installing and doing whatever we need to do there. And then also, when working with different vendors with GraphQL, you're able to kind of bring all of these under one endpoint. But the benefit of that is if all of your different sources are in different regions, you can take advantage of things like GraphQL edge caching to bring all of that data essentially to the edge once it's been cached, of course. So then when you make that same request again, if the data is there, you get that back from the cache as well. And you're not having to pay all of the different vendors to move your data to each edge node around the world. You're able to put it around the world with a single GraphQL edge caching provider. So that's again another benefit to having kind of a single gateway, a single entry point to all of these APIs. And very quickly, I just wanted to talk about the Open API connector because I love REST APIs, I love GraphQL APIs. But if you're already using GraphQL and you want to continue, but you've been told or you have to use a service that only has REST, if there's an Open API specification, well, because it's a specification, we're able to transform that automatically into GraphQL. And that's just something that the company that I work at is doing, is it has a connector that, for example, here we have Stripe. We're able to pass it the specification for Stripe schema, and then we're able to transform that into GraphQL. And then on top of that, we can add caching, extend it with custom code, etc. And then very lastly, I know we only have a few minutes left, but the ecosystem for front end and back end looks a little bit like this. Front end Relay is probably the most. It's the OG. It's the best GraphQL client, but it's probably the least used, and because the learning curve for that is extremely high. So that's why tools like Apollo Client and Urkel are on the scene. They make it a little bit easier to approach, but some of the conventions don't line up with Relay's way to GraphQL. So there's tons of different things you can do there. If you want TypeScript support, there's code generation available as well. And it works with things like SWR, React Query, anything you're familiar with that works over HTTP, GraphQL works there as well. On the backend side, if you want something managed, there are providers to do that. But if you want to build your own, there are also packages that enable you to do that as well. And yeah, very, very lastly, you can build the integration side of those, what that actually looks like. It can be an automatic integration. So you define a schema, then it automatically generates the schema and the resolvers and the database stuff. All of that's taken care of. And then the build it yourself approach, you've got to manage all of that. So it's up to you. Do you want to do front end and back end, or do you just want to do back end, or do you want to do front end? Depending on the types of products you're building or interfacing with, that integration will differ. Schema and federation are probably two topics you will come across when building these kind of federated APIs, where you have lots of different services. Those are just some things to look out for when building. So yeah, GraphQL is not dead. And yeah, the conversation's moved on from GraphQL versus REST. It's more, I don't think it's about that anymore.
Okay. That was an awesome session. And I know our next speaker is already here, but can we pull in like maybe a couple of questions? Do you have time for this?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Who should learn GraphQL?
Everyone, no. uh, if there's a requirement to learn GraphQL, or you want to maybe improve some of the type safety things, or you want to make if you're building a front end that maybe doesn't have access to a server, then GraphQL is kind of a good middle API layer where you haven't got dozens of different endpoints or serverless functions. So if that sounds interesting, learn GraphQL.
Awesome. So which one provides more feasibility, SQL or GraphQL?
Um, they both have their own. They both provide their own. They both do their own thing. So yeah, you'll need to be familiar with both probably. I would say less SQL because there are ORMs to take a lot of that weight away from us. But yeah, if you kind of want to interface with the GraphQL API, because it's self-documenting, it's a lot easier to interface with as a client.
Awesome.
Um,
Okay. Last but not least, sometimes Neumann feels that GraphQL is too much boilerplate.
yeah,
What are your thoughts on this?
100% agree. I think it depends how you look at it from a front end point of view. Oh, it's so annoying having to set up code generation and do all of this stuff. Yes, there's so much boilerplate there. Thankfully, there are tools and ecosystem that are constantly being improved and created to make this better. Houdini right now is working with Svelte and some React stuff, and that is probably the nicest experience I've seen that removes a lot of that
Mhm.
boilerplate. And on the back end, honestly, I much just prefer to use a platform that generates the API because I don't have time to build and maintain my own APIs. But if you do for your full-time role, then that's okay. But for myself, I just prefer to use a managed service.
Awesome.
100% agree, though.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for the awesome session. I really loved learning with you. And
Oh,
if you
thank you.
guys, I know you guys have a lot of questions over here, so please connect with Jamie on X or Twitter, however you want to call it. He's going by No Trab. It's over here under his name. And thanks again for being here with us.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right, guys. How did you like the first session? Okay, see a lot of comments over here. I hope you guys are ready for the next session. I have here Rafael Hernandez from Free Code Camp, and he's going to be walking us through how to build connections in open source and unlock opportunities. So, Rafael, welcome to the stage. How are you doing today?
Hi, Danny. Thank you for having me here. Hi, everyone.
Hello, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for making the time to share all your insights and your knowledge and your background on this. So I'll let you take over the stage. If you do have a presentation, share it over here and we'll pull it to the stage. And welcome.
Okay. I do have a presentation I'll share with you. Minute. So let me see.
Okay, while you do that, guys, if you have questions, you want to challenge Rafael, share your insights, share any questions you may have, please drop in the comment section. We'll bring all the best questions and all the questions that you want to see answered to him in the very end of the session. So we'll have a Q&A of 5-10 minutes. So it's going to be fun and keep interacting with us. We're loving it and loving seeing you guys over here with us today.
Okay. Let me see. We have. Um,
Okay.
all right.
All right. Take
Perfect.
it over, and I'll be here again with a few questions in the very end of the session. Have fun.
All right, everyone. Thank you again for letting me give me this opportunity. Um, my name is Rafael. I'm a web developer and Spanish translation lead at Frico Camp. And the title of this presentation, like Danny said, is Build Connections in Open Source and Unlocking Opportunities. And so um, I want to share with you what I believe will make a difference and surely will help many of you build meaningful connections and unlock potential opportunities when you participate in open sourcing specifically. There are many benefits, and you will gain by contributing to open source, and I'm sure you all agree. We all promote this, but I think there's two meaningful connections and potential opportunities are the most valuable connections that I think the most valuable benefits of contributing to open source. So, and I'm sure this is not new in through the time that I have 3 years I have been working with FreeCodeCamp, have been able had the opportunity to chat with many contributors and hear their stories, and I myself have been able to just learn in the process how it's pretty crucial for us to be able to interact with others in the open source community. And so, like I said, connections and opportunities are two of the things that I feel that are the best value you can gain from open source, but being interactive and in the community. So how do we do this? Okay, so and I'm sure you're thinking, well, I mean, this is no secret. We all know this. So but I feel that even though you can build connections and unlock these opportunities anywhere else, many have made these significant connections and found opportunities in meetups, conferences, Twitter, LinkedIn, and many other places and platforms and social medias. But I think open source is the best. So why? Because open source is where anyone can build valuable connections and opportunities. And I mean, emphasis on anyone. I believe in some other platforms, just certain people, can build these connections, and you have to do an extra effort. But I believe open source is that perfect place. And so, um, when in this presentation, it's not necessarily, or it's not really for new to programming or juniors. And when I say anyone, I mean new to programming, junior developers, and seasoned developers. So I believe anyone can benefit um, from this, and I hope everyone benefits from this presentation. What I have found, it's an interesting approach when you interact in the communities and open source. So, so this presentation is not how you get into tech by contributing to open source, or where you will build valuable connections and land your first job. That's not that. I truly believe anyone should have valuable connections and opportunities, and you can get this in open source. And I've been using open source. So, what's unique about open source? Um, Open source is anyone with any skills, past or present, profession outside from programming can contribute to open source. Open source, it needs people for design, documentation, translation, accessibility, mockups, logos, etc. So it opens the field for everyone to participate and gain these benefits. And that is why open source is the place, I truly believe, where anyone can um, have those meaningful connections and opportunities that you won't be able to find easily elsewhere. So I I think there's a good way to illustrate this by using an analogy. So think about open source like a big, chill co-working space rather than a stuffy multi-story corporate building. Instead of having each department stacked on its own floor, like sales, design, and marketing, everyone is just hanging out together in one big room. Okay, so you're not just limited to waving at people from other departments in the elevator. You can pull up a chair and collaborate anytime. It's a vibe where everyone its input is welcome, and newcomers can quickly catch up the flow and join the fun. It's just a more open, widely way to get stuff done. So that's how I see open source, and that's why I'm emphasizing of anyone. And so I want to start by giving my story, and I also have a story of a contributor that joined us a couple years ago. So I myself gained started in contributing to open source a couple years ago. Um, Sometime in March in 2019, Quincy made a post on FreeCodeCamp forum, um, the plan to update the curriculum. This post explained the reason and the breakdown to build version 7 of the curriculum. So I was very excited to jump in right away, and especially because I needed to pick the project that I knew I was able to build, HTML, CSS, and just a little bit of jQuery. But so I picked the first project, and this first project was the Learn Responsive Web Design by Building the Piano. Maybe you're familiar with it. You've been able to, you have seen it, or Build a Piano. So this was my first project, and it took me about a year or so to finish building this project and breaking it down into small steps. And along the way, there was a lot of pull requests, merges, rebates, and I was lucky to have someone to help me, Chris from FreeCodeCamp, who's now we work together. He lives in South Korea, so he took the time several times to meet with me and walk me through how to make the pull requests better and how to get out of this conflicts that my pull request was making. And so throughout the time, obviously we had a good relationship. We chat outside just what was the project at hand. So fast forward October 19 of 2020, and I still have the DM from Quincy. Quincy reached out to me and he mentioned, he thanked me for the contributions for the project I have been working on, and he wanted to meet with me. So obviously I was very surprised. He did me, and I met with him. So a couple of days before he reached out to me, he had posted a tweet where he just had this idea of translating the curriculum and articles from English to Spanish. And so a lot of Spanish speakers were excited and they joined. And so he invited me to join. And I started, with a small group of contributors translating the curriculum and the articles to Spanish. But 3 years, the 3 weeks later, he wanted to meet again, and that's when he invited me to join the team, and that's how I started being the lead for the translations. And so I've been able to participate in many other projects and Freako Camp, and that's my story. So now let me share Kevin Sanchez, and I had the opportunity to interview him a couple weeks ago for the podcast, the Freako Camp podcast in Espanol. And so he was key part of this first year of the translations to Spanish. He helped with translating several articles to Spanish and proofread hundreds of strains for the Spanish curriculum, Freako Camp curriculum. So one of the things that he mentioned when I was interviewing is that he needed that remote job, and so he was working. He's from Venezuela. He was working in Venezuela. He had gone through some struggles, but that remote job was kind of the key for him to really provide for his family, and many other opportunities open up for him. And he mentioned that one of the persons that just push him a little bit more was me. In all credit to him, he did the work. And as I always encourage those contributors who I met throughout the time to write original content. So he took that advice and he wrote an article about a tutorial on Next.js, and that was the article that another company reached out to him. He was able to land his first job, his first remote job. So key things that I want to highlight in these two stories is the meaningful connections, those valuable connections, and the opportunities that were unlocked because of those connections. So obviously the things that I know today are different, and the things that he knows are different today. And so I hope that what I share with you can help you be able to have that also same story. And I know that not everyone has that story where they contribute in open source and they can land a job. But I think this might help you to have a different approach, especially when you are participating and want to get good skills by contributing to open source. So um, a couple of weeks ago, like I mentioned, I interview my friend Kevin, but I also have had the chance to interview many other ones, and one of them is Joe Pravitt. That he's an English native speaker, but he knows Spanish, so I had the opportunity to interview him, and he shared with me um, a concept that blew my mind, and this is what I'm going to share with you. So this concept is the approach that I think will change things, and for you, and it has changed for me. And so it will help you have meaningful connections and unlock opportunities, like I mentioned. So the name of this post or this concept is "Pick Up What They Put Down," and he referred to this post by Sean. They in this concept summarizes like this, that the post summarizes like this: to improve your skills, you understand, and engage deeply with new content from experts in your area of interest. When you release new material, actively try them out, provide feedback, and share your insights and or summaries, ensuring there's something you're genuinely passionate about. Always credit and engage with the original creator on social media through direct communication and to complete the cycle. So, how does this apply to open source? Because that's specifically what I'm talking about. That is the best place. Well, let's I modify like I change a little bit this summary to apply it. So build connections and unlock opportunities by engaging deeply with contributors and experts in your community. When contributors or experts pose questions or projects, provide answers or feedback, and share your insights and summaries. Ensure it's something you're genuinely passionate about. Share your thoughts, actively ask questions, always credit and engage with contributors or experts. And I know this is probably not new to you or to anyone listening right now, but I believe that when you are more conscious of the impact that you are doing when you're engaging in something that you can see in my story and Kevin's story, is that there is two. There's a connection and there's the opportunity, but also is Chris, who took the time to mentor me in direct way, to guide me and to make those pull requests. And I indirectly also encourage Kevin to write this article that he already was considering, but he just needed that extra push. So I believe this is a good cycle where um, by you consciously engaging deeply with contributors and experts, you're not only gaining that you're building that connection, but you're also pushing or encouraging someone else when you're engaging in answering questions, providing feedback, and sharing your insights. So you're more intentional when you're part of a community. And I think it's important also that when you join a community, it's not all or should not be about receiving. It could be more about providing, feedbacks, asking questions because you're learning. But it's not only about receiving the answers. So it's mutual. Um, so leveraging open source communities. There's many communities, and I believe that you can find the right community for you. And so one of them that I do a shout out is the Eddie Hub. It's an open source community aimed to encourage, and you can see in the website or if you search in promoting community communication, best practice, technical literacy. I know personally Eddie, and so it's a great community where they encourage anyone to join, and they will help you along the way. So when you go with the purpose of being able to engage it changes things. Okay, so keep back. Also, another part that of this summary that I kind of like adjusted for my talk, it provide answers or feedback and share your insights or summaries, ensuring it is something you're genuinely passionate about. And I think this is very important. When you're giving back to the community is when you're actively answering questions, or you're trying your best to answer these questions when you give feedback. Many times perhaps you have seen this post of projects or questions, and you always let someone else answer. You always perhaps you just do an emoji, you like it. I think doing that extra effort of being able to provide some feedback, and if you do have the answers, answer that question, or help that contributor to be able to get out of a problem or something that they need help with. And I think that generally it helps you and that person to build those connections. And those connections, you never know, can lead to something. So obviously leverage social media and platforms. And another piece from this summary that or adaptive summary I made: share your projects and actively ask questions. Always credit and engage with the contributors or experts. And I think if you're building, no matter how big or small, whatever you're working, share someone else. If they have the same approach, if they have the same attitude, you'll get feedback. And that's, we all know, that's how we're going to grow. We're going to get also perhaps questions, and we're going to get help to get those projects better. And you're just closing that cycle. That's the cycle that where you're providing and they're providing feedback to you as well. So the concept again is pick up what they put down, and I really love this concept, and I narrowed it down for what I believe we can gain from open source, and how I have gained benefits from open source, and many I believe can agree with me. So I hope that this also opens up for you opportunities when you're more intentional, you're more aware of how your interactions, your feedbacks can help someone else and help you as well. So building connections and unlock opportunities by engaging deeply with contributors and experts in your community. When contributors and experts post questions or provide or projects provide answers or feedback, share your insights or summaries. Ensure it is something you're generally passionate about. That's a key. Share your projects. Actively ask questions. Always credit and engage with contributors or experts. So that's pretty much in a nutshell the concept that I want to bring with you. So if there is any questions, I'm happily to answer. Let me see.
Okay. I may hope you're ready because we have a lot of questions. Starting here with, can you help me to find projects to start contributions? I am an iOS dev. Can you help me out? Like, how can I select projects to contribute in this space on GitHub?
It's a good question, and I think for the most part, we always say it depends. So it depends on what you're looking into. I'm sure there's many projects, but if you're interested in front end, if you're interested in a specific tool that you perhaps are you're using right now, if you're using VS Code, you perhaps can start there. Look and get help for VS Code if there is anything that you can contribute. And like in something that briefly, perhaps very quickly, I mentioned is that if you don't have the expertise or you're just new in programming, there's always something. And also don't wait for an issue to be posted. Perhaps you can go deep and look if there is something that you can solve. If you don't see anything, by even asking question, how can I help? I don't have expertise in X and Y, but I'm happy to help in anything. And sometimes maintainers are willing to share with you easy tasks, something that you can do. And for the most part, many repositories or many projects are very good in labeling, first timers only, and they have the labels for you to kind of guide yourself. So I think start there, start where the tools that you're using, start on the framework that you're interested. There is many articles post about a list of projects that you can contribute. So I would say just filter it and go through it. Don't try to be in all of them. Pick one
Hmm.
and get yourself familiar with one, and just be ready. Sometimes you'll find some that are not so open to anyone, but don't give up. You'll find that perfect community. And I mentioned Eddie Hub. I think that will be the perfect place for you to kind of go, and they'll most likely guide you if there's any project you can jump into.
Nice. Great answer. Okay, next question. Can First of all, can we get a job by showing open source work, and how can we do that?
I think one of the things that everyone aims to join open source is because you can get better in some skills, right? You can get better at JavaScript, you can get better on documentation, and so on. But I think something that we can probably miss is that open source can also give you those soft skills. In soft skills, I would say can get you a job more than, and especially if you're a junior. So if you have good communication skills, you have good people skills, you have to show them. That means you communicate, you give feedback, and all that, and you're gonna stand out. If you go the extra mile to answer someone else's question, or you make sure you post not your project, big or small, you're very active. And I don't mean all the time, 24/7, but whenever the time, the window that you have available, you're active and you're intentional. I think you'll be standing out, and that can lead you to a job. Now, the probably what you want to know, how long it would take. Is it going to take a month, or that's very hard to say. But I can
It
say
varies,
that
right?
yeah, so it varies, and it will always help you to add it in your resume. It always will help you to add a project if you're actively, like I said, in social media as well. Just like Kevin Sanchez, the example I made, he by being active with FreeCodeCamp in helping translating um, and writing this article, he stand out from the crowd, and so he participated in Twitter Spaces with me and other sessions. So he stand out a little bit more than the rest of them. So that can help you. It's just the question, how much you put into it. So
Nice.
mm.
Here's a great question and something that even I want to know. How can we join Free Code Camp as contributors?
Very easy. We do have a documentation guideline, and so FreeCodeCamp, um, we we have take the time to write down in how can you contribute. So there's many ways you can contribute to the core um, um, project. You can contribute by translating. We're translating to many languages. Um, you can contribute also by creating courses. If you're a content creator, you reach out to Bo, and he'll assist you and guide you into how you can be part of the content creators team. So there's many ways. I can share with you this contributor and the contributor guy. There you go. Luckily, um, and I'll share in the chat. So we have this documentation, basically how you contribute in many ways, from localizing to contribute to the core curriculum. So yeah, that should have the answers for you.
When do you know you're ready to contribute? That's a great question.
You know what? It is a very good question. I think you're ready when you are willing to go through um if you I will say anyone can contribute. And when, especially I believe those who are career changers, you have
Hmm.
already some of the skills. You're ready to contribute. And I interview another guest who stated this very nicely. You might be junior in programming, but maybe you're a senior in soft skills because you already coming from other companies where you probably were leading a team. You did many other things that you already in ahead of those who are just graduating, or uh, you know just getting into the tech without past experience. So when are you ready? I will say go ahead and you will find out, because everyone in some way has different experiences, and it can be a simple thing where you can contribute. Contributing to open source is not only about programming. So in the past, before Frico came out, I was able to contribute with design. I was able to do logos and mock-ups for websites. My past experience was graphic design. So obviously, I didn't think I was ready for contribute to BS Code and core script or anything like that. But you can definitely start there. Just ask the question: how can I contribute?
Last but not least, what do you think, where do most beginners make mistakes while contributing to open source projects?
I think they want to. One of the things I have seen is either they want to get whole hands into every single step in the way. You know, tell me where I need to do, tell me how to do it, and then so uh, you do need to find ways to get through it. That's why the community is there. So you're not going to get the answer perhaps from one person, from one expert. The same community will help each other, and I think that's one mistake I see is when you join a community and you expect an answer, and sometimes it's not. You might get guidance where to find it, but you need to find it, and not just expect the answer for a problem, or if you're stuck in something. So um you need to grind it, and then it might not be the same for everyone. Some might have more experience than others, but nevertheless that is the same. You will have to find, do one step, and then they'll guide you to do the second steps, I guess. Yeah.
Rafa, thank you so much for the talk. I got to learn a lot about not only being proactive as a developer, but showing up, being consistent, asking questions. And I'm sure everyone here with me got to learn a lot with you as well. If you guys want to ask more questions, want to stay connected to Rafa, please connect with him on X, or again, Twitter. And thank you for this. And it's always a pleasure talking to you. And I hope you're enjoying this session as well.
Thank you, everyone. Glad I was able to share with you my insights. Hopefully it's helpful for everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rafa. Let
Thank
me
you.
see here. How are you guys doing in the comment section? Sinielda here, Lavish, Geral, thank you so much for staying tuned. And we have a next session, and we are all set and ready for it. We have Rajat Kapoor, my teammate and one of my favorite teammates on Hashnode, teaching us how to leverage Hashnode's AI editor as a developer. Rajat, come on stage. How are you doing today?
Hey Danny, hi, hey everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Love to see the
Of
amazing
course.
community, and I'm not sure how I can like top Raphael's talk. It was amazing. I think all of us are standing on shoulders of giant. I owe all of my jobs. I saw people asking questions about how they could leverage open source and their contributions for getting a job. I'm like one of those examples who got their like jobs because of open source, and I was like contributing to open source projects during my college time with the Google Summer of Code program. So yeah, it was amazing hearing all of these things.
That's
And
awesome. That's awesome. Well, hope you're ready to take over the stage. If you do have a presentation, hit present, and I'll let you take over.
sure, let me quickly share my screen. All right, I have started the presentation. Can you see it?
Okay, we are setting up the presentation, and now we can hear and see you. So we are all set. Take it over.
Perfect. So I'll be talking about like how you could leverage Hashnode's AI-powered editor, and in the meantime, and like in the process, I'll also be sharing stories around how we actually built it, and how we listen to user feedback, how we basically decide the projects that we do, and also give you a sneak peek around some of the internal things that we engineers do inside of Hashnode to move faster. As you know, Hashnode is like still a very pretty small team. We are just like less than 25 people with around 13 engineers, and we're trying to build this platform for all developers and making that a fun experience for you all to use. So apart from the community, we have like an amazing dev community. Hashnode is essentially the hassle-free blogging platform for engineers, thought leaders, and the whole of dev community. So in this like not very well designed slide, I have shared all of these things that Hashnode does. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but the things that I've highlighted in the darker colors are things that only we do as a platform. So we have all of these features are more inclined towards developers. We have automatic backups to GitHub. You own your own data at all times. We have like a best-in-class Markdown-based WYSIWYG editor that we're going to talk about. We have code syntax highlighting even in newsletters, which is not available on any other newsletter platforms as well. So that your readers, whenever they get an email about your post, they see the code syntax highlighting in there as well, and a lot of other things. And majorly, most importantly, you can host on your custom domain for free. So if you have like your own custom domain, you can host your Hashnode blog on that domain for free. And we have like again, we have a free built-in newsletter service for unlimited subscribers. But and lately, what we started doing was when AI came in, we also decided that we could use AI. The reasoning behind that was not just the AI hype. We wanted to actually help our writers publish quality content faster and with more confidence. And we also wanted to figure out ways to help our readers find answers faster. And why we did that at that point was because of the democratization of AI capabilities, and it was mostly text based AI at that point. It was fitting very well into Hashnode's offering of being a text based blogging platform. So it was a no brainer for us to start looking into avenues of integrating the generative AI capabilities. But we had to solve some other problems first. We had like our old editor that was being used for roughly 3 years, but it was not capable enough to accommodate AI capabilities. So what we wanted was, or like what our users wanted, was to have like a WYSIWYG editor that people should not waste time in changing tabs. This is like a screenshot of our previous editor. So you had to write in Markdown, but then you had to go to the preview tab to actually see what you have written and how that would look. And we also wanted to prevent users from making mistakes and letting them know that they are generating the correct Markdown from what they are writing. Because in Markdown, you could write anything. It could be valid or invalid. And depending on that, your preview would actually fail. And we also wanted to get the intent of what actions a user wanted to take in order to build their blog. So essentially, if the user wanted to insert an image that was in Markdown, they could just like be typing anything and that would transform into an image. But we wanted to help users to do that easily. And we also wanted to support that users that did not have any context of Markdown to create content and to help them create content faster. And most importantly, we also wanted it to be very extensible so that we can build up on top of it and keep on adding more and more features. So all of our problems were saying us the same thing, that we needed a new editor. So this is what we started with. So now this is like an internal term that's coined by our CTO Sandeep. It's called hackathon driven development. So what we usually do at Hashnode is that when we get a very big project, what we try to do is like code it like an indie hacker and get an MVP out to the users as soon as possible without sacrificing a lot on quality and performance. And we already do this with like a lot of features. We have early access that we give to our power users and ask them to provide us feedback so that by the time it reaches to all the users, that's in a perfect state. But we try to do it really, really fast. So we started looking at all the editor libraries, all open source editor libraries essentially. And these were the main criteria that we were looking at, that it should be extensible, it should be mature enough, that it should have been around for a while. It should be used by some big corporations because a lot of open source projects, they end up being unmaintained or just like going away. It should be actively developed. And we also did some more research to look into what all features we needed, and we did some research around these editor libraries. And the most important question was, what do Hashnode's users want? And we were constantly being tagged by people appreciating how much they love Markdown and how developer friendly it was. So we added another column for Markdown support. And then we started looking at editors again, and there was only one editor which was supporting Markdown. And it made it an obvious choice that we should go with Meltdown. But then hackathon driven development happened. We realized that building up on top of Meltdown was not that easy or not that fast. It was not very extensible. So we went ahead with TipTap. So TipTap is like an amazing editor library that we chose for building our platform. And then came Hashnode Neptune. So Hashnode Neptune is our new editor that supports is like a WYSIWYG editor, markdown based. You can compose blog posts on it as quickly as you can imagine. And then once this editor was done, we heard back from our community, and everyone was liking Neptune. We heard a lot of new comments from people coming in, sharing their love on Twitter, as well as on Hashnode, as well as on other social media platforms. And we had like industry experts who have been building editors for a living saying that they have never seen anything like this. And then we knew what we needed to do next. We started developing the AI features. And that brings us to Hashnode AI. So I'll tell you about some of the things that Hashnode AI has and what all you can do with it. So basically, I have these slides where I have like screenshots of all these features. So you can actually choose any sentence inside. So I have like this particular demo document here. So I can choose any piece of content out here, and I'll show you what our AI is capable of. So basically, you choose any piece of text that you want to transform, and then you can click on this Ask AI button, and then you see all of these features. So we have like divided these into four categories. One is the rewrite. So you can essentially improve writing. You can fix your spelling and grammar. If you are like not a native English speaker or a writer, you can convert it into like proper grammatical English. This is something that I use a lot. You could simplify it into a language, or you can choose a bigger paragraph and make it rewrite into a single sentence. You can modify a certain paragraph, you can shorten it, expand it, summarize it, explain the selection to yourself, or you could rewrite in a different tone. So if you've written something and you want it to be in a very professional tone, you can choose this. And then similarly, you could even transform a paragraph into a bullet list or numbered list. So if you feel that any of your paragraphs fits more like a list, you can do that. And you don't have to do anything. You just choose that, and probably I'll just choose convert into US English, and then AI takes over, and then it presents you with the result. You can either click on regenerate to see another variation, or you can accept it. As soon as you accept it, that piece of content gets replaced. So that's one of the things. Apart from that, we also built a lot of other features that help you do things like menial tasks that you would not want to do, or that you're not expert at. So probably you can look at this title. You can click on this AI button to get some alternative titles for your blog post that are again AI generated, and they are better suited for SEO as well. So they help your blog, and you're again presented with five titles. You can choose anyone and that gets replaced. Apart from that, there are other fields that also impact your SEO that can be generated by the AI. So the SEO title of the blog and the SEO description, you again see these AI buttons, and you can just click on these. Because this article does not have a lot of content, it won't generate a lot of sensible things. But once your post is completely populated, it'll generate a really good SEO description fitting all the guidelines that are provided by like search engines like Google and stuff. So it'll take care of the length, it'll take care of the words, it'll take care of keywords and all those things. Apart from that, I think one very important change that we did, this was not necessarily related to text related generative AI, and that was adding alt text to images. We are of the philosophy that accessibility is much more important than aesthetics, and we try to do our bit here by making all our Hashnode powered blogs slightly more accessible. So basically, if you have any image inside of your article, images, they should be having alt text, because screen readers, when they recognize an image, they can explain to the user or the reader what that image is about. So what we did here was that if you choose any image inside our editor and you click on the alt text button, you again see the Hashnode AI button here, and you click on it, and in a minute it'll generate like an alt text for that image explaining what the image should be. We'll just wait for a second. Yes. So it's like a black and white photo of a podium with numbers. Click on insert text, and now your images are all accessible. So these are like some of the very minute, delightful features that help our readers quite a bit, and also makes your life easier. And these are things that people usually forget about, adding like alt text to images. So that's what we did with AI. And apart from this, like we also have like a few more things. I'll just quickly clean these up. So basically, let's say if I have this particular article title comparing React and Next.js, which is again AI generated, and I have this title and I want to write about it, what I can do is I can generate the article outline, and basically this will give you an outline of an article, a list of headings and points that you can write about in your article. So this is like a very good starting point that all of you writers can use inside Hashnode with the Hashnode AI. You'll just wait for a second. Probably it's generating a big list of things that you can write about. So it'll give you the headlines, headings, and subheadings that you should write about in order to make your article more informative. And it keeps on doing that. And like you can probably choose what you want to write about. It's a lot, but probably you can split this up into a series as well. So, like you see, it said that you should be writing a headline about introduction, and then you give a brief overview, the purpose of comparison, then talk a little bit about React, virtual DOM, JSX syntax, Next.js, the definitions, and factors to consider while choosing React and Next. This is all completely AI generated and works for any title that you want. And then you can probably end up with a conclusion with a recap of key differences and also talk about recommendations based on specific use cases. So as you can see, we can generate outlines. If you have written your complete article, you could also generate summary. Again, that feature is also here. So you can summarize your article. You could also generate a code block. So let's say you want a code block. You want to just, in this article, you probably want to explain a tab component using React.js. And I'll just click on this, and essentially this will generate a sample code block of a tab component using React.js, and that will be inserted like a code block inside your article. So again, these are all assistive features. We don't expect these to work perfectly, but this does a very good job. We have like a tab component where you have all the tabs listed, and you can change these tabs. I see it as using use state and all that stuff. So basically, this could serve as a very good starting point and help you in preventing writer's block and whatnot. Moving on to the next section, the other bigger change that we did with Hashnode AI was because we were not able to accommodate all of the features inside the UI. We always wanted to give the flexibility to our users to do bigger things with AI. And that is why we introduced this Hashnode AI chatbot inside your editor itself. So this is your AI assistant that stays right beside your article. And you can ask that to do anything about your article. You can ask it to summarize it. You can ask it to generate a catchy title. You can ask it to generate like a Twitter thread based on your article so that you can share it on social media. And the best part about this chatbot right here inside your article is that it has all the context of what you have written inside your article. So if you want to probably shorten a certain sentence, you can ask it to do that. You can generate a conclusion. So all of these things are based in the context of this article. So it always knows that you're talking about this article. So that's about the Hashnode AI chatbot. And then when we released it, we again got a lot of praise from our amazing community. So people were loving this and people were able to use it like just like we imagined. And the best part about this is like if you look at this particular tweet, the user actually wrote that it is not writing the article for them and they are writing it. They are just getting the assistance and they're asking it to it was like an assistance, it was like a help, it was not content generation for free for the user. And that is what Hashnode stands for. We want our users to be assisted by AI, but people are coming on Hashnode to read the content written by their favorite writers. So just a few more things about AI, again some fun stuff that happened with us. So I think with AI the temptation is to put AI everywhere, but we have to avoid that temptation while also being on the lookout for great places to use AI. So one of the good things that we did was that we are now using OpenAI for spam detection as well. We are using AI to categorize a lot of our posts, a lot of the spam posts that are coming on our platform. and those are being completely avoided by AI. We are getting very good results with that, and we are in like the continuous process of improving it as well. But then the other temptation is that we wanted to add like a lot of writing techniques again inside our AI tool that you saw. So write as a simile, write as an oxymoron, insert onomatopoeia into a selection, and all those things. I don't even know what that means, but we avoided that temptation of adding all those things and just did like the bare minimum that are really really useful to our users. So what's next for Hashnode AI? So what we want to do is preserving content formatting. So this is something that is again not easily possible with AI, because once you give it the text, it comes back with a set of text. But what happens is that if you have like a user mention or a link or some content formatting like italics or underlines, those are not preserved in the AI results. So we are already we have already made like quite a bit of improvements here. A lot of the user mentions that you'd see, a lot of the formatting that you see is being preserved nowadays, but it still lacks a lot of things. So we are working continuously on improving that. And we also want to show all of these features. So firstly, multiple responses from the users to choose from. So as of now, if like I showed you, if you choose a particular sentence and ask the AI to rewrite it, you basically just get one choice, while at some places you get five or probably more than five choices. So what we want to do is show the users a lot of choice and make them choose the ones that suits their writing style the most. We want to work on AI image generation as well, so that instead of like searching other platforms for images and then putting them inside of Hashnode, you can just like give it a prompt and it can generate an image for you. We want to do an AI based sanity checking of full blog posts. So basically, a one stop button that will suggest you tags, it'll do all the SEO optimizations, probably add all text to all of your images and whatnot. We are also looking to have AI based translations. As Rafael also mentioned, they are working on free code camp translations into multiple languages. What we want to do is we want to give the users a way to read the language and read a particular blog post in their native language. That's very, very important for us. We are in the process of democratizing developer and technical knowledge for all the world, and we don't think language should be a barrier there. So again, but this is like kind of an unsolved problem. We are still trying with a lot of AI tools to see what best results can we get. We are working on AI summaries and explanations. So we want to give a way for users to preview a particular article, and before they spend the whole time to read it completely, we want them a way to just read the summary or get an explanation, like a an easier explanation to a tougher technical concept. And most importantly, we want to hear from you what you would like to see here. So we are always listening to our community. We are always on the lookout for more ideas of how we can help our community. So I'd love to see what you think about this. And before I end this, like I have a note for all AI users. It's for Hashnode AI users, but like in general for all AI users. So, firstly, do not be a bot. Do not directly copy paste the AI generated content. Hashnode calls it like AI assistance for a reason. And I think it goes without saying for all other platforms as well. People are not here to read like just AI stuff. So you can use it for all the help that you need, but make conscious decisions and like make sure that it's you. And you have to use the tool as a tool. Don't let the tool replace you. If you let the tool replace you, it will actually replace you. You should not let that happen. And be responsible and authentic. Personalize and customize the content to reflect your own voice and personality, because like I said, people are here to read the articles that you are writing, not an AI. And that's all I have. Thank you, folks.
That was awesome. Okay. Uh, let's answer a few of the questions here. First, about how you guys can actually leverage and use Hashnode AI. So, getting started here, all the AI features are available with the Hashnode Pro subscriptions, but you can try Hashnode AI by heading to hashnode.com/AI for free for 3 days, and you can test it out, have fun, play with it, and use it as an assistant to your coding and writing skills, and also adding code snippets, enhancing your text, and so on. And yes, the new super powerful AI features from Hashnode will got you guys up and running and jumping your writing off the page. So sharpening ideas, crafting compelling content, generating outlines like Rajat just showed us, and fine-tuning every single element of your blog post to make sure that you are sharing your ideas and your knowledge in the clearest and crispiest way. And let's see here if we have any questions. Okay, technical question here for you, Rajat. Are you or us, are we using OpenAI for this?
Short answer, yes. Long answer, no. We are using a lot of things. We are just not relying on OpenAI. So I had like a challenges and limitations section in our in my slides that I just like skipped at the end. I think it was going too long. So we are using OpenAI. When we first started, we were using OpenAI 3. We had early access to OpenAI, but at that time, the functionality was heavily rate limited. So and again, by the time we launched it to everyone, we had like GPT 3.5 available as well. So we were using that, and then as soon as GPT 4 came, we switched to that. But then we were using a combination of GPT 4 and GPT 3.5 again, satisfying the rate limits. We tried with GPT 4, and like we had different prompts that worked well with GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. And on the basis of that, we were using mostly OpenAI for all of this stuff. But a lot of features that you see, like the image alt text generation one that you show, we use a completely different model. It's called Blip. It's developed by Salesforce. We use like a hosted version of it. So we use Blip for the image alt text generation. Again, there's one more very big AI tool that Hashnode has developed that I did not speak about, and that's Rix. A lot of you have already heard about it. Danny also mentioned that we are going to have a talk about this. So I don't want to steal Sam's thunder there, but for Rix, we are using a completely different technology. We are not relying on OpenAI for that. But that said, like again, you never know. OpenAI comes next day with like a newer version of GPT that outperforms everything else. So we don't want to stay behind with that. So that's why we have built all of these things in a way that the AI provider that we have, or like the LLM provider that we have, is fairly easily switchable. So yeah, that's the long answer.
Is Neptune open source and is it available for developers as NPM?
Okay. So as of now, Neptune is not open source. There's like a fairly technical reason for that as well. So I think the way that we have built Neptune in order to provide like a very wholesome user experience for our users, we had to build it in a way that it integrates very well inside the Hashnode ecosystem. So again, so if you go to the Neptune editor and you type @, it shows you a list of all Hashnode users. So in order to do that, like the mistake that we made is now Neptune is fairly intertangled with the Hashnode ecosystem. So open sourcing it would not make a lot of sense for people to use it in their own projects unless they wanted like all of Hashnode's functionality inside that. So that is why we have not open sourced it. But we are what we have done instead is like I think we have been fairly transparent about how we built it. So we built it using TipTap. If you look at the TipTap docs, you'll find a lot of the extensions that we have used to build Neptune. And in the meantime, we have already opened a few PRs with TipTap as well. Those are not accepted yet, but we have opened a few PRs with TipTap. We again are standing on the giants shoulders of giants, and we want to give back to the community. But we might have some open source goodies coming up. We have a few projects in the line that we might open source.
Good question. And I do want to see your input on this one. What should beginners write about on Hashnode, especially as they are new in tech? What is your perspective on this?
I think if I think the when I was beginning my career, I think the things that helped me the most were just sharing my learnings. So I think the best thing that you can do as a beginner in tech is that if you are learning about a new technology, I think just explaining what you understood from the concept and sharing it in a beginner friendly tone so that others can benefit out of it is really, really helpful. You could read a very long article about a certain technology and you might just like simplify the concepts that you understood and share it with other beginners. I think that's the best thing that you can do.
I always like to say that if you learn something and you teach someone about what you have just learned, you're learning twice, right? So, kind of like, as you said, learning, sharing, and kind of like contributing not only to the community, but also enhancing your own uh, perspective about what you just learned is kind of like essential to this journey. Okay, last but not least, what is the major difference between Hashnode AI and Rix? Is the former one more for writers, the latter for readers? What would you say and summarize this in a simple like answer? What is the main difference, the key difference here?
Right. I think like it's fair to say that Hashnode AI is more suited for writers and latter for readers. But that said, I think Rix is much more powerful than just the Hashnode AI, because with Rix you can do web searches, you can talk to a particular article on Hashnode, you can probably summarize or learn any concept. You can just share a URL and ask it to simplify it and explain it to like your like 5 year old. So all of these things are only possible with Rix. With Hashnode AI, the intent was to make your writing experience fairly easy. So I think with that, we are giving the assistance to users to so they don't have to copy things to Rix or like any other AI platform. So they can do the things in place, and with that they can generate the quality, the type of content that they want to write, or like the set the tone of the content that they want to write. So I think Rix is more suited, like Rix is like probably more of a global companion for all the developers,
Hmm.
while Hashnode AI is like just the AI companion that sits inside of Hashnode for you to write better.
Great, great, great. So Hashnode's AI is a companion for writers. Rex is a companion for coders, for learners, or for people who are trying to expand and use Rex as an assistant for all types of things. So I like to,
Exactly.
yes, perfect. Okay, well, we are a little over time. So I'd like to thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks for the talk. I think it was really great to learn more about how to use Hashnode's AI and how we as writers can enhance and leverage that tool. So thank you for joining me.
Perfect. Thank you, Danny. Thank you all. I know it was like a short session, but you can always connect to me on Twitter. I'll drop my Twitter in the chat right after this call, so we can connect there. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, let's check in with you guys here in the comments section and see how you guys are doing. Let me see. Purna, you can check in on hashnode.com/pro. And if you want to check in on Hashnode's AI specifically, you can go to hashnode.com/AI. All right. Hope you guys are ready. We have a last but not least session for today, which will be hosted by Sabrina Aquino, also a Brazilian like me. And the session's name is To All Juniors Dev Out Here, Building Universes, Not Just Code. So Sabrina, join me on the stage. How are you doing today?
Hi. Hey, Danny. Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me to participate on this bootcamp. Honestly, so much expertise has been shared here today. I'm so honored to be here.
I'm glad to have you here and also really excited to learn and listen all about your talk. So I'll let you take over the stage. And I'll pop in here in the very end of the session with any questions or any inputs that our attendees may have. So have fun.
Thanks so much. All right. So, my talk here today is to all junior devs out there. And I do have a question for you guys to begin with is do we have any junior devs on the chat here with us today watching this? And if so, say hi. And well, if you are even a mid level or senior level developer, I made sure this talk also provides value for you and you get some like a little bit of understanding of what it takes to be a considered a good developer today in the market and actually knowing how things work instead of just like putting puzzle pieces together. Now, the objective of the talk is to give you the maturity to know not what you should learn as a developer, but how you should learn it. And even more importantly, what companies look for in your resume or in your projects to know whether you are a good bet for the company at that moment or if you're a good fit for what they are looking for. So, I've been consuming a lot of content from hiring managers, senior developers, tech leads, people with decades of experience in tech, sharing advice on what you should focus on as a junior developer, why the job market looks so bad right now, and why are people seeking like putting job requirements with tons of technologies that uh, are also a bit too much for entry level positions, as we may perceive from the outside. And I want to share what I learned here with you today so that you know what you can do to stand out in the industry, in the tech industry, as it is today. Not 10 years ago, not 5 years ago, and not even 2 years ago, today. And I'll explain what that means in the next slides. But first of all, I want to introduce myself. Hello, everyone. I am Sabrina. I am a software engineer and currently a DevRel at Chicudo, and I have some pieces of documents and people that would agree. This is my bio drop. You can find all links to my social medias and content that I put out there. So just do a quick scan there and you can find it. And I created this chart here to share. I'm divided in mostly four categories. One is DevRel, another one is Dev. Those are the biggest ones, and also a gamer and a coffee addict, which I think is part of being a dev. But I separated those in different categories. Oh, okay. So starting the talk, every one of us have gone through this thought at some point. Like, okay, I want to be a developer. Now what? Where do I start? And you start doing some tutorials, you start building some projects, and you start actually seeing stuff being developed, learning new things. And you think, okay, I am prepared to start applying for some jobs. And if you are like most developers out there today, how they share the sentiment of the job market being just not as easy as it was before, or is not easy to stand out in it anymore as it once was, right? And it's not uncommon these days for us to have this type of content right here show up on our timeline. And we see that entry level positions, when they exist, they are now like flooded with like dozens of technologies that sometimes you won't even use in the job. People are complaining that junior developer positions require now like 5 to 7 years of experience, which doesn't add up really. And well, just a lot of people complaining that they are struggling to get a job today in the tech market. Now, we need to think like, okay, why are companies doing this? Is the job actually bad? Job market actually bad? Why is this happening? And the thing is, yes, you're not imagining it. The job market is actually not as great as it once was. But the thing is that I want to talk with you guys today is programmers are also becoming a bit worse. And let me explain what I mean by that. They are somehow not fitting the expectations that the market are putting for them at this level of sophistication. And I'll explain what I mean. And if you look at this image right here, you see like we also see a lot of this content on our timeline, right? We are being flooded with these like even shallow resources about technologies or how to build projects. And don't get me wrong, I think knowing those technologies is great, and and you should know that they exist. But consuming too much of this content is doing more harm than good to newcomers and new developers in the space because they think, well, okay, that's it. I learned ES6 in 1 hour. What now? And they end up having no idea what they're actually doing and how this fits in the larger picture because the content itself is too superficial. And by the way, the content here is just illustrative. I don't mean any harm to any of these content creators. Even I try to pick some that are just like intended to be superficial. But you can see like a lot of stories these days are kind of like this, right? This meme of an hour. I love sharing this. We have in the first side here how to draw an owl, draw some circles, and that would be the equivalent in a tutorial of like, hey, okay, let's install Node, right? Let's set up our environment, or let's download Python. And then there is a ton of time in that tutorial, like 20 minutes or something, that the person is doing only that. And then after he does that, he's like, okay, now let's start your Next.js application and let's deploy it on Vercel and let's quickly connect to this database. Let's click a few buttons and set up the backend. And now let's create like some functions and like, okay, here's your application. And if you follow that tutorial, you will actually be able to develop that application. Okay, you will be able to even create advanced systems that are performant, systems that are accessible, that are efficient, sometimes even has like great UX and is scalable. And the problem is there are just so many abstraction layers that you just skipped when doing this. There are just a lot of things that you as a beginner have no idea how they were built, or how they were why they were even built, and how to use them properly, because you don't know what are they doing in the backend, or what are they being projected to do. For example, Git itself is an abstraction for versioning, as most of us know. But many technologies we are using today are abstractions for problems that people used to have, that if you don't try to solve it yourself first, you never understand why they are there. And consuming too much of this type of content, what it does is that it creates developers, even senior developers we can see these days, that are a lot of times hollow inside. They only work on the surface. They don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And then you can ask me like, okay, but Sabrina, what are you saying? Like, isn't that what the job market wants? They are asking for these technologies in the job description. Shouldn't I be able to learn how to build projects with the latest technologies? Shouldn't I have a modern tech stack too? And well, yes, you should, but no. And let me explain what I mean by this. Is that you do need to learn what those technologies are and how they are connected to each other. But first, you need to you need to learn what is that you are doing with each one of these things that you are touching. The foundation of explaining why things are the way they are is what will set apart a beginner programmer from an experienced programmer. Technologies will change, will continue to change over time, have always changed, but the concepts behind those technologies stay the same. And if you learn the concepts behind the technologies, you will be able to switch between technologies very easily. If you learn only how to do stuff with one technology, you'll only be able to use that technology, and sometimes even struggle to understand how it works completely. But knowing the concepts behind these technologies and explaining how they were built, what's behind it, what problem they are solving, how is it that this technology is solving this problem. This is essential if you don't want to become one of those hollow developers. And next time you say like, okay, I want to be a developer, now what? Think in terms of I want to be a good developer. I want to understand what I'm doing. I want to feel confident when I'm programming. And even better, think I want to be a very good developer so I can stand out from the crowd and actually be selected between the applicants of a certain position. And to do this, the first thing you'd like to start is applying your learnings and find out the what is the abstraction layer that you're using and the problem that it is solving. What is the problem that it is abstracting? And do this for each technology that you begin to use from now on. Understand what's happening behind the scenes when you call a certain function, or when you write a certain command on the CLI or on Git, for example. How is the machine behind the tech reading that command that I'm sending to it, and how is it acting upon it? When you understand these concepts, it's much easier for you to not mess up using it, first of all, but to scale your knowledge and easily learn technologies after that. And well, I guarantee that if you start just being curious about those things, you're going to be ahead of like 90 to 95% of the people applying to entry level jobs right now. And you'll become a much more confident developer in the future in your career and feel more confident when coding and sharing your knowledge with others. And there's this one quote from Carl Sagan that we can keep in mind for this that I really enjoy. And he says, if you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. And I just love this association because we can think of an apple pie, and what do I need to have this apple pie? Well, let's start from an apple. I need an apple, right? But to have this apple, I need an apple tree. But I cannot have the apple tree without a soil to plant it. And well, to have the soil, I will need Earth, the actual planet. I'll need the planet to be able to plant the tree. But I can't have the Earth if I don't have the sun and the whole solar system. And then the whole solar system is placed inside an universe. So if I want to have an apple, I need to first create the universe. And this is just genius. Because, the same thing happens with programming. Things don't just come into existence. If you want to learn it from scratch, go into the root of the things that you are learning in each step of the development of the application and learn how they are working behind the scenes. And I know I'm repeating this a lot because I cannot emphasize enough how this is what will make a difference between you being a developer that knows your way into building applications and one who doesn't. This is what really, really makes a difference today in the market. And I like to illustrate this using this example of a monkey playing the piano. And, I don't know if you already have this, but probably in circus or in some kind of magic trick, you can find a monkey that learned how to play the piano in specific ways. Maybe he was trained to play in certain keys in certain orders and make some sort of sound that actually is kind of good to our ears. And when the monkey does that, he doesn't really understand that he is producing sound, or he doesn't know how to produce another sound, or he doesn't understand that he's producing a sound that's good even. He's just playing some keys in certain order to follow certain instructions, and it happens that it creates a good sound because he was taught to do that. But how does this monkey actually compare to a professional pianist, for example? um, the professional pianist knows the piano and knows music, how music works, and how he needs to play the piano to be pleasant, and how to make any sound he wants with a piano. And if you are thinking about building an orchestra, which one of these would you hire to be your main pianist or something? And well, depending on the case, you might choose the monkey, but I believe most cases you will want a professional pianist for your orchestra. And this also happens in the industry. And like I said at the beginning, going to this second part, I want to teach you how to stand out from the crowd in the current job market, not the one from 5 years ago and not the one from 2 years ago. And here is where I will start explaining the difference and why, the reason for so many people not being able to get hired today in the market is because they are not competing for the current market sophistication. They are competing for the market how it was a few years ago. And to do that, I'll start introducing this concept of sophistication layers of the market that I really think is interesting and it's worth taking a look at. Now, the concept I want to talk about here is okay, the sophistication layers and the tech industry and its evolution throughout the years. And right here, I'll divide it into 5 different layers so you can understand, starting from the top, number 1, where the funnel was a bit larger. So the sophistication was not so sharp, people could get in more easily. And then we start talking about back in the day, it was mostly what you needed to become a good developer and get started in the industry was HTML, some JavaScript, maybe PHP, and some SQL. If you knew that, it was you were good to go. Like people would want to hire you, and you could do most stuff honestly with those technologies. And well, as the market became a little bit more mature, we could see things as like Git being developed for versioning, and Python for the backend. Something like GraphQL, like we had a talk here earlier talking about it. Really good, by the way. Something like Ruby on Rails, like full stack frameworks being developed that would help out the development process of applications by a large amount. And then we go to the next layer of sophistication in the market, which is too much fact on this session. Oh, yeah, cigar. Okay, then we go to the third sophistication layer, which we start talking about React and Node and Mongo and Redis, which is the most frameworks start being developed. Things for handling cache and handling no SQL databases and a lot of things JavaScript. Like we have Angular, we have Svelte, we have Vue, and those frameworks started being developed and building an application um, in this level of sophistication was much easier than it was on level 1 if you think about it, and you could build an application that was much more sophisticated than on level 1. And then we go on and then we talk about level sophistication 4, where we start talking about the idea of Docker for containerization and deployment and hosting platforms like Vercel. We started thinking about some authentication services like Auth0, some solid principles for object-oriented design, and TypeScript for type safety to JavaScript. And we start talking about these concepts, and the market becomes much more sophisticated at this point. They want you to learn how to scale applications a bit more. They want you to think about security. They want you to think about type safety with TypeScript, and security is solid. And then we go to the next level of sophistication of the market, which is the one that we are at today, which is where we start talking about Kubernetes and container orchestration, and then cloud services and cloud computing with AWS and serverless and open source, which we also had a talk here today, which honestly, it can be included in every level of sophistication, but I thought about including it in level 5 because I do think it plays a large role in the market today, and recruiters love seeing it in your curriculum. And the thing is, the tech market is just more mature than it was just a few years back. If you go 2 years back, we are much more mature now, and the industry is growing like crazy. Um, the roles that we had some time ago that were relatively easy to get are expecting much more from candidates because, in one hand, it is easier to develop complex applications, very, very complex applications, with all these abstraction layers that we are creating and that the industry has introduced over the years. But If you are a junior, you also need to spend some time understanding the problem that that tool is solving behind the abstraction layer. And the whole thing just seems so impossible because it's so much to learn. And it is a lot to learn. I cannot deny it, but this is natural to happen as the industry is becoming more sophisticated. It's getting harder to get in. It's getting harder to get a job and to stand out from most people. But the thing is, most people today trying to get a job and complaining like, "Hey, I'm not being able to get a job. I've done all these projects. I've created. I've watched all these tutorials. I've went to a boot camp." They are most of the cases on level of sophistication 3, and they get there and they build some projects, start applying for jobs, and sometimes not hearing back from companies. And this is because companies don't expect you to know just this anymore. They want to see more of this and they want to see more of this because these are the technologies they are using currently in their tech stack. And they want to be able to know that if you join the company, you will be able to know the technologies they are using there and not be completely lost and have to learn everything from scratch. And this is what's happening right now. But the good news is, if you are here on level sophistication 3, it is much easier to get to the level of sophistication 5, much, much easier than it was to go from 0 to level 3. Because there are so many new things you need to learn when starting programming, when learning React, when learning JavaScript, Node, Python, Git, a lot of things. It's a whole new way of thinking. It's a whole new way of developing, of structuring your brain to work. And after you've done that, you've done most of the hard lifting. All these technologies after that are solving problems for you, are easier to learn, and the learning curve is much lower. And I would even say you can go from level sophistication 3 to 5 in like 1 month if you put your mind into it, really. And it is that easy to switch between these layers once you are already deep into the funnel. um Now there are many other things I'd like to talk to you guys right now, but we are running a bit out of time. I'd like to talk like which projects will make me stand out, how to stay motivated and productive, because this is a huge touch point when we talk about learning so many technologies, how to feel confident with my coding skills. And unfortunately, I cannot talk about all these things today, but I am actually promoting my newsletter called Actually, that I will be talking exactly about those things, about how you can feel competent as a programmer. It will be launching this Thursday, and it will happen weekly on every Thursday of the week and of the month, actually. And it's going to talk about like the abstraction layers, what's behind it, modern frameworks and tools that we have today, how they actually work, tips for being productive, and how to stop procrastinating as a developer. I'm guilty of that myself. Um, how to feel competent as a developer and stand out in the job market today. Those are all things that we're going to be talking about in this newsletter. And you can find the link to it scanning this QR code. And that is it. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm leaving like some time here for questions if we have some time left.
Well, 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 it was indeed an amazing talk. So thank you for sharing all your insights. That was really awesome. And I would say like one of the most fun talks, and actually a
Oh, thank you.
huge layer of like spitting the truth in our faces. I'll not deny that.
Well, yeah. I guess someone had to do it. Sorry.
Like first day of the boot camp, like slap in our faces right there, but okay.
Yeah, I think like it's even special, especially for the first day of the boot camp. As we move forward, keep this in mind. Try to see things as they are in behind the scenes, and keep your mind curious. I think this is one of the biggest qualities of a developer, is being curious about what you're building and what you're using. So those are my larger, bigger tips.
Okay, we have a few questions here. I'll take it like 5 minutes of your time if you have it. But are you implying with your graph there that knowing and learning Kubernetes is a little bit more sophisticated than knowing JavaScript? The front end is much harder than the back end.
This is a funny question. This a front end and back end war by any means? I don't want to get involved in that discussion. Not really. I don't think this is what we mean by that at all. For example, JavaScript is solving a problem that is much in a much more low level way than Kubernetes, if you actually think about it. Kubernetes is abstracting a lot of configurations and infrastructure problems and orchestration problems and actually um, maintaining and scaling infrastructure. So it's the amount of problems that Kubernetes is abstracting away with just a few lines of code. Even though Kubernetes is very complex, right? We can say Kubernetes is easy at all, but the amount of things that it is abstracting away, it is on a higher level of sophistication of something as JavaScript. I think if you think about the concept of sophistication, you can think of like, okay, Kubernetes was created after JavaScript to solve problems that were happening building JavaScript applications that JavaScript itself couldn't solve. And you can say
Mhm.
that's a bit more sophisticated.
Absolutely. Can you explain more about dealing with unrealistic deadlines as a developer? I think like that's a point that all of us, being in the tech space or non-tech, deal with it a lot. But how do you advise and go through this as a developer?
Yeah, I think unrealistic deadlines will always happen as a developer. I wish someone had the answer for that. Even experienced developers, people with decades of experience still suffer from it, and we all know it. It's hard to exactly estimate how much trouble it will happen when you're building an application, especially as the application grows and it has become more complex. So you can think of, okay, you can start thinking about what is the complexity of the application that I'm building, and you can start thinking about how you're going to report that to your superiors, because in the end they are the ones putting on the deadlines for you. And you can say like, okay, you can share things, for example, in a table, and you can say, okay, this is the amount of progress that we made in a week, for example, for this application, let's say 50%. And this is the amount of hours that I worked. And it's like, okay, 50%, I worked 60 hours on this, not 60, like 30 hours on this application for a week, right? And you go to week two and you say, okay, the next 30 hours that I spent working on only got me to like 65% of the application. And you start and your boss goes like, okay, why is that? Is that it? Why didn't you complete the application since it took 30 hours to go to the half of the application? And you can say, okay, these new problems showed up, and you
Mhm.
list those things that showed up. So you say, okay, at the beginning it was only this, but now we have to deal with this, and it's taking more time. And you can share like, okay, more 30 hours, more the amount of hours and the amount of progress, so people can actually know, okay, they are doing things. They're not just playing around. It's just that more stuff are coming up. This is a complex application, and you can start thinking about that in that way.
Absolutely. I mean, more complex tasks will take more time. So, how do I know or explore that a tag framework or library X exists for specific tasks and could be used in your project Z out there?
That's a great question. I think GitHub is the place that you can go for this. Mostly Googling, Google what is that you want to do, and try to see if you can find anything of that on GitHub. I think GitHub is even better than Google these days for finding this kind of stuff. So if you think about, um, hey, I want a library or a framework that will make me create this type of component more easily, and you can like type the name of the components and then type like framework or something, and something will pop up. But this is a great question, actually.
Absolutely. Okay. Last but not least, how do you choose a tech stack and what should be the deciding factors for this?
Oh, this is a kind of like, I don't want to be involved in this, guys. I think it's a lot on what you want to be building. I would say my personal opinion on this is that you start simple with something like JavaScript and or Python and grow from there. So if you choose, for example, I want to be more focused in JavaScript, and this is something I would very much advise for people starting out. Pick one language and stick to it. For example, if you stick to JavaScript because it rules most of the web, then you can say, okay, um, what else there is to do with JavaScript? Then you go, okay, maybe I can use something like Node since it's extremely popular. You can try a little bit of that. Um, you can try a little bit of like frameworks for Node, like Express.js, and try a little bit of React. I think it's a lot about experimentation and see what fits you the most. A lot of people go with like, okay, I tried React, but I just used Vue this one time and fell in love with it.
Mhm.
Developers usually love Vue more than React, but React is a better fit for the market because more companies are asking for it. And it goes a lot from see what companies around you are asking for in job descriptions, first of all, see what they need you to learn. And if it's like if there's kind of a flexibility there, go into like your personal taste and try a little bit of each one, see what fits best for you.
Okay. I have a very last question that I want to bring to stage from Rafael. And would free or paid courses be enough for self-taught developers to be on level 5 of the graph that you just showed us? So, in your opinion, what resources people should consider or explore to get to level 5?
That's a great question. And absolutely, I do think you can learn your way into web development all the way for free on the web. There's so many resources out there. And um, I can't say specific resources, but try to choose people that you trust, content creators that you trust that you feel like they explain well and they go deep into the explanation. They don't just go over it and
Mm-hmm.
do like, hey, this is Kubernetes in 10 minutes kind of stuff, because it won't be it. If you can find like a course that explain like it's a workshop and it goes like a few days maybe, then this is probably much more valuable than just a quick course. And of course, try to apply those things that you are learning. So every time, like, okay, do a course, make sure that it is a very dense course, and then apply right after and try to build with it. And then maybe if you just build one project with it, that's enough, for entry level position. One or two, people are already happy that you know your way around that technology, which a lot of new devs don't know. So you will already be standing out from the crowd.
I mean, even after what Rafael just shared with us today, if you get to learn about a new tech stack, go to open source, pick an issue
Yes.
or find an issue yourself and start applying those. So
Yeah.
there's no better way to do that.
I cannot stress
Uh,
this enough. Open source is so valuable.
okay, don't want to take too much of your time, but very last question. Node roadmap is perfect. How to follow a path to start learning? Should I create my own roadmaps?
um, yeah, I think you should create your own. This is a very personal way of wanting to learn. For example, I think it all depends on your curiosity and the things that you want to learn next. I would say the very, very best way to find your path is to start trying to develop a enterprise level application. If you try to build like this super complex application that would require like you to set up security authentication systems and like comment sections and posting and profiles and all these kind of stuff, how would you go about that? And create this kind of direction into the things that you need to learn to get there. And this can be like your path into creating your roadmap to development, because if you are able to build this application, then you are able to get into most jobs these days. This is perfectly what people want you to know is, are you able to build a enterprise level application? And if you can do that, then companies will love to have you on their team. So try to build your way towards that, independent of like the tech stack that you are using, the tools that you choose to use, and see what it looks like, you know?
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me in today's session. It was a
Thank you so
pleasure,
much,
as
Danny.
usual, to have you. And glad to have you here and to learn with you, and even to learn about the steps and stages for the sophistication of tech stack. So loved your inputs. Love being slapped in the face. I'll not deny that.
Thanks so
So
much.
thank you for joining us, and I really appreciate you for taking the time.
Oh, thank you so much, Danny. Thank you for all the Hashnode team for organizing this. It was an amazing experience. And thank you for everyone in the audience.
Amazing. Okay, guys. This was our last session for today. And before we get headed to our days and start applying all the knowledge that we just learned, I really want to share. Let me see over here. Can we get the agenda for tomorrow's sessions in the screen? Okay. So tomorrow we have an even more packed day. We have 5 sessions, starting with Flow Marian, trunk-based management, and other principles to build a developer community. We have Sam, also from the Hashnode team, teaching us how to use rigs as developers. I will have a super fun fireside chat with Eric Tang about being a founder, being a developer, and also building in the Web3 space. And we also have Camila Ramos, building a personal brand. And last but not least, we have Brandon Streetmatter talking about designing better developer experiences. So I'm really excited for tomorrow's sessions, and want to know here in the comment section, how did you guys like today's sessions? And if you guys had any favorite sessions today, what did you guys enjoy the most? So for the recordings, we'll be making the recordings available for you guys once the bootcamp week ends. So those will be available for you guys on Hashnode's YouTube channel by next week. Okay, so let's just pause for a moment and talk about how amazing today was. I really had a lot of fun, learned a lot with you guys over here from our speakers, and diving into GraphQL with Jamie Barton, exploring endless possibilities with open source capabilities with Rafael Hernandez. And today was nothing but a really fun day, and we got to learn a lot. So a big shout out to all of our speakers, and for you guys to joining me today here and learning together with me. And we kicked off with some strong sessions for the first day. We also had Rajat teaching us some awesome insights for Hashnode's AI editor, which I hope you guys leverage after today's session and write about to share all the insights and knowledge that you guys just got today here. And Sabrina had an awesome session rounding up things by giving us and all junior devs out there some serious brain food for thinking. And if there's one takeaway from today, from my personal perspective, is to not forget about coding, building connections, understanding ecosystems, being present, being consistent, and asking a lot of questions. So sometimes even building universes like Sabrina just taught us. So again, if today's sessions have inspired you, please write about it on Hashnode, on LinkedIn, and on X or Twitter. And the top 3 articles with most likes and comments tagging hashtag Hashnode Bootcamp will receive a Hashnode gift box, which I promise you guys will like. So it's time to start writing, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another set day packed with awesome sessions.
you and then golden sand on an island far, far away. Midas touch, I'm the magic man. Follow me and let's get out of this place. We could fly over our problems, watching clouds from a private jet. But you don't have to worry about the rain when only champagne gets you wet. Everywhere I go, everything is gold. Everybody knows I got the Midas touch. Everywhere I go, everything is gold. Everybody knows I got the Midas touch. 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 Oh yeah. I wanna put some diamonds in your ears and tell you everything you want to hear, and throw this money in the atmosphere. Can you feel me?